All right, we're back on another episode of What Is Your Story, and we're here with another guest, and we're gonna ask him a few questions today. Uh, First question we're gonna start off is, what is your name?
My name's Brent Faust.
And where are you from?
I was born in Santa Fe, then moved to Dickinson, and then moved to League City. Now I live in Galveston County still.
And so, growing up in all them cities, how was your childhood like?
My parents divorced when I was 2. My dad moved across Santa Fe. We still lived in Santa Fe until I was 8. Uh, we saw my dad 4 days a month, every other weekend, and every other Wednesday night. But I had a pretty normal childhood altogether, the early years.
And do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I got 5 sisters and 4 brothers.
Do you still talk to them?
Um, I talked to 2 or 4. I talked to 4 of my sisters, and I don't really talk to any of my brothers except one.
And if I could ask, or have an idea of what is the reasons why you don't talk to your brothers?
Uh, One of my brothers is homeless and a drug addict, and he's just kind of out of the loop. The whole family's kind of pushed him. Well, he's pushed us away, but him and I kind of had a falling out about 5 years ago. My other brother, the one that I do talk to, I only see him maybe at Christmas and a family party during the year. He's younger than me, but he's doing really well. Uh, he's just busy all the time. And then the other 2 brothers, I don't talk to them because I don't talk to anybody on my dad's side of the family anymore.
So, do you keep in contact with your parents?
Yeah, my mom and my stepdad, I talk to them nearly every day. They're like my biggest support that I have. But my dad and my stepmom, I don't talk to them at all.
And was your dad always in your life, or did y'all always have problems? Or
Uh, my dad was around a lot when I was a kid. He was a pretty good dad, but he married a woman when I was 12 years old, and she's just a shit person, and they had a bad relationship. They were always arguing. Every time we were over there, it was a big drinking party. So it wasn't really good for us to grow up there.
so I see that you talk about addictions and stuff like that. Does that run in your family, or
I have a uncle on my mom's side that had some issues. I got an uncle on my dad's side that's still dealing with it. Uh, but for the most part, alcohol is the biggest issue in my family. My brother is having issues. He played football for Annapolis, the Navy. He was on TV on ESPN and everything. He got kicked out of the Naval Academy, and now he's homeless. And so it's sad to see people fall from such a height. They were doing so well, but some of it's self-inflicted. I'd say addiction is almost always self-inflicted. That's how I feel about it.
and we're gonna speak about more of addiction later on. But
Okay.
did you finish high school? Did you go what high school did you attend?
Yeah. My freshman year, I went to Clear Creek High School, and I had like 103 in English, and I had a 7 in math because I liked writing. I love writing, but I hated math. I hated the teacher, and so I was just having issues. So my mom took me out of school and homeschooled me for like 3 months, and I was a shit student at a public school. I was even more of a shit student at home, and I hated it. I didn't have any outside contact with my friends or anything anymore. And then I got accepted to Clearview High School, which is an alternative school.
Did you graduate from that school, the alternative school?
Yeah, I graduated from Clearview 3 years later on time. I made up my entire ninth grade year. I made up in the next year. I did 2 years of high school, basically.
Okay, okay. And so after high school, did you have any plans?
I had joined the Marine Corps, but then I backed out. So like a month before I was supposed to leave, right after high school, I just told them I wasn't interested anymore, and I had my own plan.
And before we speak on that, In high school, were you a troublemaker or anything like that?
I was the funny guy, so people, I guess, liked having me around. It was like my defense mechanism because I'm small. So making people laugh was always the thing that made me happy. I got in some pretty big trouble in my early teenage years. So I won't say that I quit getting in trouble later or quit making trouble. I just got better at not getting caught.
Stuff like that. You can finish off what you were saying.
Yeah, in high school, me and my buddies, we would just we were like an anarchy, running around just terrorizing people for no reason. We did all kinds of shit that I'm not going to say on video.
I got you. And what would be like your favorite memory from your childhood or growing up?
I don't know.
That made you happy?
Probably when I was little, I used to go to my grandparents' house and I would catch crawfish in the ditch in front of their house when I was real little. And that was a really good memory of my grandpa and my childhood. I always loved doing that.
So your grandpa was a big part of your life as well?
Oh, for sure.
Is he still here?
No, he passed away in 2011 while I was in the Marines.
And so after high school, you're speaking about the Marines. When did you enlist?
In 2008, I got caught in an all-girls dorm after midnight, and I got an $1,800 ticket in San Marcos, Texas. And I went to court for it, and the judge asked me how I was going to pay my fine. I told him I didn't have the money, so I was going to sit it out in jail. And he asked me if I had any other options, and I told him, well, I was signed up for the Marine Corps, but I backed out of it. And he said, well, if you come back within 60 days and prove to me that you're going to boot camp within 60 days, I'll drop the fine and all the charges. So that's why I enlisted the second time. But the first time was because I was in sixth grade during 9/11, and that is the day that all Americans remember where they were when it happened. And I had a cousin, Walter, who was in the Army when I was in like 8th grade and all through high school. And I would see these pictures of him fighting in Iraq, and I thought that that's what I wanted to do. So I wanted payback, I guess, for the Twin Towers. So that's why I initially enlisted. But the second time was just to clear my charges.
So how did it make you feel whenever 9/11 happened? As a child, how did it make you feel?
As a child, I was mad, and I hated the entire country of Iraq and the entire country of Afghanistan because I didn't know better. I just thought the whole place was terrorist strongholds.
Just bad people.
Yeah, and that's not the way it is at all.
So speaking about things like that as well, I'm gonna get off topic a little bit. Do you feel like that's the reason why a lot of racism happens? Is because people don't know about other people's cultures and stuff like that? They just see about the bad things that happen of their race. You know what I mean? Like Mexicans and African Americans, white people.
I think a lot of it is stereotypes, and it's called Islamophobia. So Americans that were born here and lived here their whole life, after 9/11, they were treated terrible everywhere they went because they're wearing a burqa or a turban. And some of these people are from India, which they're fighting the Muslims just like we were. And they have nothing to do with it. So it was a big problem here in the United States, but it was something that I kind of bought into in the beginning because I didn't know any better. But when I went there, I learned a completely different side of it.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
I got you. And whenever you enlisted the second time, how were your feelings, or what were your emotions going through whenever you enlisted the second time?
I was really nervous about boot camp. I didn't really care about the other 3 3/4 years. I was nervous about the 3 months at boot camp because you can't look it up online what happens there. There's no video of what happens. It's just like a big secret. And 13 weeks is a long time. And it was a big change from what I was doing when I joined the second time.
And going to boot camp, how did that change you mentally?
It definitely showed me my mental and physical boundaries. It widened it for sure and gave me a lot of self confidence. Uh, I went from partying and doing ecstasy and drinking every night to drinking a gallon of water before I got in bed every night. They would make you chug an entire canteen, which isn't a gallon, it's probably a quarter of a gallon, but every night you chug that canteen. And if you would have asked me 3 months before that if I could drink that whole thing at once, I would say no. Or if I could run that obstacle course, I'd say no way. The Marine Corps gave me a lot of confidence and pride.
So it made you as a better man,
Oh, for sure. It
or turned you into a better man? What would you say?
yeah, I would say it takes you like a piece of dirty coal and it turns you into a diamond through pressure. But I did things that I thought I could never do, and I learned a lot there about uh, being self-reliant, not having to have someone else take care of me. I would definitely say that I became a man at boot camp.
So how did you break it down to your parents that you were gonna, enlist into the Marines?
I told my dad when I was 17 that I wanted to join the Marines, so I needed him to sign a piece of paper for me because he was my biological father. He had to sign it, and he refused to sign it. He wouldn't sign it, so I had to wait till I was 18 and do it myself. My mom, she was super proud. She was happy because she knew that I was getting in trouble and I wasn't being the man that I should have been. And so she knew that I needed that structure, something to whip me into shape. So she signed it, but my dad didn't. But when I turned 18, I went and signed all the papers myself.
Because legally you could do
Yeah.
it then. Okay. And whenever you went after boot camp, what unit were you in?
I was with 3rd Battalion, 1st Marine Division. They're famous from World War II. They fought the Japanese on almost every island from Hawaii to Japan.
And how was that?
It was good to go to a good unit, and it was stationed in a really good place. It was in California. So they could have stationed me at a couple other places, and they all suck except California. So I was really happy. When we graduated the school I was going to, everybody else got on a plane and flew to North Carolina. I got on a bus in California and went a mile down the road to my new housing.
To your new home.
Yeah. So I definitely got lucky where I got stationed.
And whenever you were stationed, were you scared about getting deployed?
No, so as soon as I got to the unit, I started talking to everybody that had been there already, and I said, when are we going to deploy, or what's the unit's plan, blah, blah, blah. And they said, we're going to deploy in April of next year, and it was April when I was asking them. So I only had 12 months or so till I deployed, but you don't know exactly. They didn't say April. They just said sometime next year. So it could have been January to December of the next year. So there was this fear that like any day they could call us and we would go. But we started training to go to Afghanistan. So everyone thought that's probably where we were going to end up.
And during the training, what was the hardest moments of training for you?
We did ruck hikes. And you carry a pack, it's probably 80 pounds to 100 pounds. And when I got to the fleet, the furthest hike we did was like 12 miles. But I'm there with all these guys that played football in high school and everything, and they're big, jacked farm boys. And then there's me, and I weighed 110 pounds. So I'm carrying a pack on my back that's the same weight as me, 12 miles. And I was dying, but I never fell out of hike once in the Marine Corps. Because if I can make it and everyone else is watching me do it, I felt like I could give everyone else around me like a morale boost, keep them in the game. But hikes were definitely my least favorite part of the Marine Corps.
So how many deployments did you do, and when was your first deployment then?
April of 2010, I went to Afghanistan.
All right, we were speaking about the first place you were deployed, and where was it at?
Uh, we went to Afghanistan. My unit got sent to Afghanistan in support of Operation Enduring Freedom. We got sent to Helmand Province in southern Afghanistan on the Pakistan border. And the Taliban was coming out of Pakistan into the Safar Bazaar. It's like a flea market in the desert. And the Taliban were going up there and trading weapons and whatever else. And there was a heavy IED presence in all of Helmand Province. It was the deadliest place on earth in June and July of 2010.
And were you like front line? Were you in, or, like,
Yeah,
what were you doing?
I trained at School of Infantry as a machine gunner, but when I got to my unit, they needed riflemen. So I was in a rifleman squad, and we were infantry. So they sent us to PB, which is a patrol base. It's half the size of a football field, and 14 of us got sent to that outpost. And the nearest Marines to us were 10 kilometers away, about 7 miles in every direction. So the 14 of us kind of held down the Alamo in the middle of Afghanistan.
And how many buddies were you said 14 of you, so in your group? So how many out of the 14 survived?
We lost 14 Marines in my unit, and there was more casualties, but those are the guys that didn't make it. But IEDs were the main factor, not gunshots.
So there was a lot of action going on where you were.
Yeah, it was a pretty hot AO. The unit that was there before us had it way worse than we did, I think, in some ways, because the Taliban were everywhere in that province at the time. And when we got there, they were kind of pushed into a corner, it seemed like most of the time.
I know there was probably like, a lot of things going on at that time, but since you were talking about, meeting people in like life, did you meet anybody from there? Like Marine Corps or whatever, how they do it out there? Did you meet anybody from, Afghanistan?
Yeah, so we would go eat dinner with a village leader. I won't say his name, but we lived in their village, and we would go eat dinner with them, and they would feed us and give us information about the Taliban around them, because they wanted the Taliban gone too.
So who are the bad people, the Taliban or the Afghanistan people?
Yeah, so in the 1980s, Russia invaded Afghanistan, and the Afghans fought back, and they called themselves the Mujahideen. And the Mujahideen fought the Russians with American weapons that we gave to them. And then when the war was over, they beat the Russians. They kept the weapons that we gave them. And then when we went over there and invaded in 2001 or 2002, they were using those same weapons against us from the 80s.
Wow.
And all those old men, now they had sons.
Yeah.
And so we were fighting the sons and the dads.
So it was basically fighting generations.
Yeah. Of fighters. And
fighters, yeah.
They've been fighting for thousands of years in Afghanistan.
That's wild. That's wild. So off your first deployment, whenever you went back home, how did that change you from coming in? Like, how was your mindset changed from coming in and going, home?
The whole deployment, I couldn't wait to get home and drink a 6-pack of beer, I remember. And I knew my mom was going to be waiting there when I got off the bus. And so I asked her to bring a 6-pack with her. And she did. And I drank one like right away. And then when I got to my hotel room, I opened the second one. And it was my first time to be alone in 8 months in a room where no one could see me or anything. And I started my shower, and I got in there, and I drank my second beer. And I just broke down. And I cried because it was the first time I could in months and months and months. So it was rough. I didn't feel like I felt bad in any way, but it was just being at such a high level of awareness for so long. It was like an adrenaline rush 24 hours a day for 8 months. You had to be on alert all the time. So when I made it to that hotel room in California and I was alone, I don't know, it crippled me.
So was your mom there for you whenever you were in California?
No, I didn't tell her about it. So the next morning I woke up and they were in a hotel room next to me.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't tell them at all.
Oh, so you dealt with the emotions yourself?
Yeah, I thought it was just like a one-time thing. Like, oh, it's just because I'm alone, blah, blah, blah. And I needed to get that release. I thought it was just a one-time thing. So the Marine Corps really makes people fear saying that they have PTSD or any kind of anxiety or depression or any of that. They say, oh, don't be one of those PTSD guys. And that's kind of the environment that we were raised in the Marine Corps with.
And so you can say that's what started your PTSD, or what started your PTSD?
I would say around 2014, about 2 years after I got out, I was going through my divorce. And I never felt like I had PTSD from being in Afghanistan or anything. But I was depressed. I was on alert all the time. Everywhere I was driving, I was looking on the side of the road. I was walking on sand, I was looking for wires. It's just my brain was still there, my mindset, and I needed to do something and change it.
So if there was somebody that didn't know about war and things like that, and they asked you, because they always talk about stuff like this, like the kids going up to you and stuff. Did you see a lot of kids out there
Yeah, there was
working for the Taliban?
no. The kids are allowed to come out. The girls are until they're like 10 years old or whatever.
Okay.
So they know that when they reach 10 years old, they're going to get locked in the house for the rest of their life, completely covered. So no man is allowed to see your wife or your daughters after 10 years old unless they're covered.
And if they seen them, what would happen?
I don't know for sure.
Is it like a disgrace to them?
Well, they still punish people by stoning them to death in Afghanistan for a lot of offenses. So, and they cut people's hands off and everything still.
Wow. Then your second deployment, where were you? Where were you deployed to?
My second deployment was a Westpac MEU, and Iran was messing with some U.S. Navy ships in the Strait of Hormuz, and so the Navy put us on their ship, and we went and set off the coast of Iran to show presence and force for a few months. And we went to some Southeast Asian countries. We went to some Middle Eastern countries. And yeah, we were just showing force with the Navy.
And how many KIAs were in that deployment?
None on that deployment.
And so that deployment was it was less stress?
Yes and no. So on the first deployment, you were at such high alert all the time, but you had a schedule. You knew you were going to go on patrol and walk 10 miles every day. Then you knew you were going to stand post for at least 8 hours every day. Then the other 8 hours is your time to eat, sleep, do whatever you're going to do. And so every day was broken into 3 sections: free time, patrol, and post. But on my second deployment, we were Marines on a Navy ship, and we didn't have jobs on the ship. So if we weren't in port training, then we were just sitting there all day on our laptops, watching movies and whatnot, and it made the time go slow, like being in prison.
So you felt like whenever you were in war, time went by faster?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And did you have any like wives or like girlfriends while you were in?
Yeah, I got married before my first deployment, and during my first deployment, I got my first divorce. I came home for 365 days between deployments. I got married within that next year. So I got divorced and I got remarried like 10 months later. And I deployed 3 months after, or 2 months after I got married the second time. So it wasn't enough time to establish a good foundation. And I should never have got married. I did it for the money. But our relationship wasn't where it needed to be to start a marriage.
So whenever you were out there, like whenever you were deployed, was it messing with you mentally? that you were married and that you couldn't see your wife, or how did that affect you at that time?
Yeah, and on my first deployment, we probably only got to call home maybe once a month, maybe once every 3 weeks or so, and you would only have like 10 minutes. So you had to choose between your wife, your mom, your dad, anybody else you want to call. So we had to. I would always try to call my wife, and on my second deployment, on my first deployment, I was going through my divorce, so I never called my wife. I called my mom every time.
Yeah.
But some funny shit started happening when I went on my second deployment, and I knew my wife was having an affair. So that made the time go even slower because I couldn't get a hold of her, and I was just stuck there in my own mind.
How did that make you feel?
It made me angry for a long time. So that didn't help with my mental health at all, for sure. Crazy shit was going through my head every day, and I was just mad, and I just wanted to go home, and I wanted to solve the problem any way I could. But I ended up coming home from that deployment, and we tried going to counseling, couples counseling, and during that time, my son was born.
Oh, so you have a son.
Yeah, I have a 10-year-old boy.
Okay. And whenever you first found out she was pregnant, what were your emotions? Were you deployed at that time as well?
No, after I came home, she got pregnant a few weeks later, and it was such a rocky time in our marriage. I was afraid to raise a child in those conditions because we were arguing every day, even with therapy and counseling, everything, nothing was working. And I didn't even want to try anymore. I had given up on it because I just couldn't forgive her. But I was excited to be a dad, and I was really happy it was a boy.
Did he change your life?
Oh, for sure. Now he's like the anchor that holds me still whenever I've wanted to give up in the past. I don't want him to have to grow up and people say, "What happened to your real dad?" He has to tell us a sad story. So
That's why you're still here.
yeah.
Doing what you got to do. That's respect. On your third deployment, where were you? Where were you deployed?
I didn't do a third deployment.
So you only did 2 deployments?
Yeah.
Okay, so during them 2 deployments, one was on water and one was in the desert.
Yeah.
So in the desert, could you tell me how you took a shower, and could you tell me how, like, the things that you had to do every day, how was it changed from being in the desert?
All right. So I was at a patrol base that had no generator, so we had no electricity. We had no water. There's no water system in Afghanistan. It's the desert. The walls around us were made out of mud. There was no roof, so you slept outside under the stars. Luckily, it doesn't rain there. I slept in a hammock the whole deployment. We ate MREs, or we would buy potatoes and a chicken and tomato sauce
From the
and rice.
Afghanistan?
Yeah, from the Afghans.
So they'll sell y'all that?
Yeah.
So did y'all trade anything? Could y'all trade stuff?
We could, but all the stuff that I had from Afghanistan that we got from the villagers, they confiscated it when I was on my way out of Afghanistan. They wouldn't let us take it home with us.
Okay. And you keep on speaking about, like, your first shower in Afghanistan.
Oh, yeah.
How was that?
So on our way home, we got on a helicopter and they flew us to a huge army base. They have concerts and electricity and video games and phones and restaurants, everything. And it was awesome being out in the desert for 8 months, and then now you're there. We went to go take showers. It was the first thing I wanted to do. So we went over there, and there was a line of like 30 soldiers in front of us. And one of the guys turned around and saw how tore up our clothes were, and how dirty we were. And they let us cut them all in line. He said, "Hey, all you guys get out of the way." We went in there. And I got in the shower, and I turned the water on, and I stepped under the water, and it was the first hot water I had taken a shower with in 8 months.
Wow.
And the whole bottom of the tub was all black from my hair.
Yeah.
you don't realize how dirty you can get. It was like being homeless. But
Until you take a shower, you see how really you got, how
yeah,
dirty you really got. Yeah. And taking a shower, you said that was your first time with hot water, so you used cold water. How, like, what was the shower like? How did you keep up with your hygiene?
we had a bag. It's called a solar shower, and you would go down to the dirty ass river where the people piss and shit, and then you scoop the water out and you carry it over and you hang it in a tree and you stand under it and you open the spout and it gives you about 1 minute of water coming out of it. It's like washing your body with a water
So you
hose
just
for
got to
1
do a
minute.
quick rinse.
Yeah. And you could leave it up there in the sun so it would get hot, but someone would steal your water every time. You would go to take your shower and it would be empty.
Wow. So being small in the Marines, did that give you an advantage or a disadvantage?
Um, Sometimes I would say it gave me an advantage. I was better at some of the physical things. I could pull my body up easier. Running was easier, things like that. But when it came to carrying weight, like the machine gun or ammo or my pack, it really sucked. It was like an extra burden on me that other people didn't have. Other people struggled, but it really made me struggle, especially because I didn't play any sports in high school or anything. I was lazy.
Do you feel like, because a lot of people that served and, them times that you went to serve, there's a lot of them that feel guilty of even being alive. Do you feel guilty?
Uh, that's called survivor's remorse, and that's one of the conditions of PTSD. I wouldn't say that I feel guilty to be alive. I would say that I take things for I don't take things for granted anymore. I definitely appreciate things a lot more now because I got to come home because 14 guys paid the price for me.
And were you close to any of them 14 guys?
Um, yeah, I knew some of them, but I was closer to the guys that we lost after we came home.
So a lot of your friends committed suicide?
Yeah, almost just as many guys as we lost in Afghanistan have committed suicide since the war to now.
You said the number was 14, right?
Yeah, and the
Okay.
suicide number is probably 8 to 10.
So it's about 23, 24
Yeah,
people that passed away in total.
yeah.
Okay. And how do you how do you deal with your PTSD or your mental health? Everything that you go through, how do you deal with it?
Um, I went through a program called the Lone Survivor Foundation. It's now called Operation Red Wings. I went through that program when I was at rock bottom, and they gave me tools to carry around in my mental toolbox that instead of drinking all night or going and doing something stupid to myself, these are things that I could use every day that just lift you up and help you get through it easier.
And then, like, before we get more on that, how did you transition from war to home?
Um, they do like a 2 day program when you get out of the Marine Corps. Uh, it's called TAPS, and it's right the last 2 or 3 days you're in the Marine Corps. They try to help you transition into becoming a civilian, but they definitely need to do a whole lot more than just 2 days because it took me years to get back to being even roughly like anyone else around me.
So do you still deal with?
Yeah, I believe that PTSD is a permanent condition. Once you have it, you have to learn to live with it. But it doesn't have to be this demon on your shoulder. You can just you can learn what your triggers are and just avoid them.
So what's some things that changed from then to now?
Now, I help other people with their PTSD. I'm a team lead for Operation Red Wings. I actually went to work there after I went through the program, and it did save my life. And so I wanted to give that to other veterans. So I went to work for them, but I also started my own foundation as well. We take veterans hunting and fishing.
And do you have like a website for that or anything?
Yeah, it's on Facebook. It's called the Gulf Nation Foundation, and We have a big barbecue event coming up on June 9th and 10th.
And if you want to send that to me, I could post it in
Yeah,
the
I'll
link
do
in
that.
bio, and we could do some things like that. If you have any like advice or things to people that went to war and they have PTSD and they deal with mental health every day, what would be some things that you could tell them to help them?
The most important thing you can do is build yourself a support system. So I know that not everybody has a mom and a dad and a brother that calls them every day. I'm so lucky to have the support system that I have. I didn't have to build it, it was already there. So if you don't have those people to reach out to, go to PTSD groups, go to veteran lunches, just get yourself around other veterans and build a support group and reach out to them every day or every other day and just check on them and talk to them. And you'll realize that you're not the only person going through all the shit that you are.
Like to say to the world, or any advice, what would it be?
Just live life day to day. Don't stress out about tomorrow. If you're thinking about committing suicide ever, just know that there are people that care about you. Just reach out. Mental health affects everybody at some point in their life. Everybody has mental health issues at some point. The best thing you can do is just take good care of your mind. And yeah, just reach out and check on your friends. That's probably my biggest regret, is not doing that.
I got you. I know you got an event going on or about to happen. If you would like to speak on that and tell them
it's a barbecue
there.
Yeah,
that's going to go
it's
on.
A barbecue cook-off in Hitchcock at the Want More Bait Bar and Grill on June 9th and 10th. There's going to be the cook-off. There's going to be 2 bands. It's going to be Trey Lewis on Friday night, and it's going to be the Snubblers on Saturday night. We're going to have 50-50 raffle. We're going to have a silent auction, vendors. Yeah, just come on out, come enjoy it. And all the money is going to go to helping veterans go on hunting and fishing trips with us.
So you run that hunting and fishing trip thing?
Yeah, Gulf Nation Foundation.
Okay. So any veteran or just anybody, or can anybody go?
Anybody can sign up, and we're going to go through the list. And
so do you have to be a veteran to go there?
Yes, but we would make exceptions maybe. If it was a cause that would help save somebody, I would definitely do it.
I got you. So you're all for that?
Yeah.
Helping somebody. I got you. I don't know. You have anything else you want to talk about, or you want to let the people know about you?
No.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right. That's a wrap. Appreciate it, though.